Okay, today I'm going to change the fuel filter on my 2016 Sprinter, and I bought the original fuel filter from Mercedes, and I also bought the original style hose clamps to go on it. And then for the original style hose clamps on Amazon, I bought the special tool that crimps those hose clamps on. Okay, so first thing you have to do is you have to pull this tube out, which can be a little challenging. So pull this up out of there, and then pull that out. Set that out of the way. Over here, there's a little lever. As you can see down there, you push this little lever, and then you can pull up on the battery charging. That's where you jump start from the battery. And then over here, there's this connector. Squeeze these little tabs and pull that out. And then the same thing here. Squeeze the tab and pull that out. I have this performance chip. I'll just disconnect that also. And then this clip here, you gotta kind of pull it down. It has like barbs that catch on to hold the wires out of the way. And then you loosen up this hose clamp. And you can pull off the tube. Now to remove the whole air filter assembly, you pull up on these. They just kind of stick in these rubber grommets, and then you pull it straight out. And what you get is these little Ys fit on these rubber pieces there, and that's what that does. So then you just set that out of the way for now. And this particular model doesn't have a cover, but some of them have a cover on here over the engine. This one doesn't. Also, just sake of space, I'll pull this off also. Here, the rest of the tube, just the hose clamp here. Then you can get that, hopefully. That should come off pretty easy. And just get that out of the way. I don't need to disconnect the other part, but just enough to get so I can pull the fuel filter out. So then you have to disconnect from the fuel filter here, this hose, and then this connector. So I just push down. It's hard to push with your finger, so I push down with my finger push down with the screwdriver and pull that connector off out of the way. And then I use a small screwdriver. There's a little clamp here. You gotta push up on it, and then you try to get underneath like so. You can pull that out, so it has this little clamp here, and then you can pull that away from the fuel filter. Then the other last thing is you got to disconnect the two hose clamps. So what I use is a pair of diagonal cutters, and you just kind of get on here and twist them. It kind of comes apart. So there, one of them's off. And then the other one, same thing. Twist it. And then I'll pull that one out. Then you have to just take the hoses off the filter. Sometimes I use a screwdriver just to pry on it. Or you use a pair of pliers. Gotta twist it a little to try to break. It gets like a seal built on the rubber. So I couldn't get that one, so I just twist it a little bit and then it breaks the seal. Then you can pull it off like that. Okay, now that's away. So now we just got to remove the fuel filter. So I got to remove these two bolts. There's one behind this connector, 2, 3 like star bolts that you have to take off. I use you can get a special socket for that, but the 8mm 6-point socket works just fine on those. So I use a long extension too, so that I can get above everything and not be in my way. So you do one here. Two. Then 3. Then that'll get you so that the fuel filter can now be pulled out. So there's like a bracket here, just don't lose the brackets there. And you kind of finagle it out, and there you are. So then this is the bracket that was holding the filter in the place there. So then what you have to do is use it's a 5mm Allen key, and you just loosen this up here. And just remember the orientation. So it had these two parts of the bracket were right in the center of this. So just remember that orientation when you put it back, so that way the hoses are in the same spot. And then once you loosen it up, you can get it out like so. So I just leave it in that orientation, knowing that it's going to go back in that exact way like that. Then you get your new fuel filter. And then, like I was saying, the orientation of this will go about in the center there. And then you tighten this back down. There, and snug it down. Then I'll leave these on until I get it in there so I don't get debris. Oh, and then this one hose clamp, just make sure you always pull that off. So the way this fits in here, see this one clamp it actually goes in between that clamp. So you have to go in between the two parts of the clamp. That's the best fit. And then this one here, if I can get it, goes underneath. It's not working on me. That one goes under like that. Like so. Then line it up in the hole. And I do is I always put all three of them in by hand first, so you don't fight it. If you tighten it down, you could have problems. There. Then we just retightening. And I'll just hand tighten this for now, and then I'll come back and torque it down. This one's a little trickier because it has three different pieces of metal, so it kind of can pinch onto the threads. And then this one's a pretty simple one. It only has the one part of the bracket. And then I just snug them down. This one. But just don't over tighten it. But just enough so it won't vibrate loose. That. Then we have this connector. So we have to put, see how the pin, as you can see, there's a little notch on there. The notch goes in there. So just make sure you have the orientation on this correct. And that fits in like that. Oh, and pull it. So just that's how it goes. But you got to put it in after this is on. So go like, make sure it's in good. Oops. Like that, and then see, always pull it, make sure, see that it came out, so it wasn't in all the way. And you'll hear a click like that. when it goes in, and then make sure it almost mates up to the surface there. Then you know this can go in, and then that'll hold it locked in like so. And then this connector I'll put in next, and just wait, push hard and hear the click. Just make sure it stays in like that. Now I'll pull these caps off here. And then put my hose. So this is how this particular hose clamp here so this is the way the hose clamp is, the factory hose clamps. So what you do is, see how that plier fits right in that little notch there? Like that, and like that, and that's how you squeeze that, and that tightens it on, just so you know. So that's with the factory hose clamp, or you can use just standard hose clamps, but it's much quicker just to use the factory ones. And it usually goes on much easier than it comes off, of course. And there's not a lot of clearance. So like that. Make your notch goes in on the correct notch there. And if I can get it to turn. Let me do it the other way. Well, as I found, this comes tight clearance to the bracket there, so I'm going to flip it over. So I was trying to do it that way. I'm going to flip it this way, so that way the notch is on the other side, and it'll just be the little piece of metal there, because it's such a tight tolerance with that bracket. There you are, that's much better. So then make sure your notch is the correct direction. Get it in the right spot. So you can see that's where the barb part is. So you want to be just above that. And then squeeze. Okay, then it's on. And then you do the same thing for the other hose. And this one, the orientation doesn't matter as much. There's no tight clearances around it. Okay. And then the same thing. That one's locked on. Make sure you check so it doesn't pull off. Make sure all the connections are on good. Now what I do is I just want to check for leaks. So, okay, I started it up and checked, and nothing's leaking. So you definitely want to make sure that there's nothing leaking. You don't want to be driving down the road losing all your fuel. So then now you can, I'll put everything back together. Okay, so now I got to put this back onto the turbocharger. So do like that. Tighten it down. Make sure it's tight, but don't over tighten it because you could strip out on these hose clamps. And then so with this air filter, these, like I said, these two prongs here go onto that rubber. So you just make sure that they slide on, and then they will clip down into these grommets here. This goes on here like that. And then tighten this down. Then this clips back on here. This goes onto the sensor there, and then I'll put my special performance chip on. Then over here, put your jump start positive terminal in, and then this. Okay, then you should be set to go. Your fuel filter is all changed and you're good for another servicing. So if you haven't seen my video also on cleaning the EGR valve, because this can give you problems, so then watch that video on how to clean that, and then also my other videos if you were interested. Subscribe with new and updates on Sprinter, and also geothermal and renewable energy and all kinds of other things. So please subscribe, and thank you very much.